Oh my gosh, Antonio, what just happened?
I think we got taken down by hackers. I don't know. I'm a little worried. I'm going to look outside. If there's an eclipse, I'm in great danger.
I think we got hacked.
I think we got hacked by the girl with the dragon tattoo-ish person who is not at
Dutch.
all a ripoff of that person. Right.
Her name is Dutch.
Her name is Dutch, which shows that she's not Swedish or Finnish or whatever the girl with the dragon tattoo actually is.
Well, I know that there has been a lot of trouble on the internet lately with hacking. So maybe we are just the latest victims.
Oh no, Josh, did my pictures get out?
Your pictures are out. I've seen them all. I already saw them. You kept texting them to me.
Well, what did you think about the one with all the honey?
I didn't like that one as much as I liked the one with the chocolate sauce. That was my
Yeah.
favorite.
See, chocolate sauce is a little
Let's not get
well,
into this,
you
Antonio. Let's just kill this where it is.
know,
We've got vampire killing business to get to.
yeah, so let's kill this. I got you. I got you.
All
I'm
right.
also with that.
So we had some technical difficulties. Hope everything seems and sounds like we're back on track. Sorry to screw with the show, but we are getting back into the swing of it now. So where did we leave off, Antonio? We're now everybody is in the Quickie Mart.
Yeah, Jim was down. Jim took a nick. This is no good for Jim. He says it's just a scrape. F's charging up the lamps, which I think is an interesting thing that these are rechargeable lamps. So we've all we're taking stock here of what's happening. And as we get to taking stock, our boy the silly fat, he needs the rules, Josh.
He wants the rules because he's like, listen, you seem to know what you're doing. I'm probably going to be going out on my own. So what do we do here? What am I supposed to do here? What are the best moves?
Yeah, the previous to this, he hilariously said, "That's why I carry rebar." You know, this is a really good the thing for our guy to have is this rebar love. So he's carrying this rebar around and doing work with that rebar. But he wants the rules. He wants to know, is the rebar enough or what's he got to do? And he's the silly fat. So he's calling out the guy who works there Apu, which is a quickie mart, but I think that's a little off base for our boy.
It's not a nice thing to say.
It's not a nice thing to say. So he says, "Go ahead, Apu, fire it off in there. Go def." So
That seems to be more Kimi than Vasily Fet.
yeah, he's bringing a little bit of Kimi vibes to the stage here. But knowing the rules, wanting to play by the rules, Kimi's not exactly a guy who plays by the rules. He's a rules changer. So this is somebody who just wants to know the rules.
So he gets the rules. You got to decapitate. The brainstem must be severed from the spinal cord or destroyed. The flesh wounds, they're going to heal. Only silver really hurts them. Vasily, he admires Abraham's nail gun. He thinks that's pretty cool.
Yeah, standard issue, Home Depot.
It's really good. And so they do the handshake. I'm Vasily Fet. It's good to know you. Abraham
Yeah,
Satrakian, a pleasure. It's really good.
pleasure. Yeah, they're these guys are forming a really good relationship here. One nail, one weapon, one killed Strigoi at a time. It's really nice. I like what they're doing.
Yeah, I like what they're doing too. Vasily is my favorite character on the show, and Abraham is pretty close as well. And I'm also a big Eichhorst fan. We could have had a little more Eichhorst in this episode, and I would have been really happy. But the fact that these two are together now, I'm good. This is great. This is where I wanted this show to go.
This is where it needed to go for several episodes. I'm happy that we're here. I'm happy with the way they kind of found each other. I really like that Fett wanted nothing to do with these guys to begin with. He worked alone. He didn't want to see it. He called Abraham Gramps and Pops. He was kind of not really taking him too seriously. Then he saw Abraham go to work, son. He cut some heads off. He was really talking to him. He was very interested in what Abraham knew and what he could do. And all of a sudden, he and Abraham are like peas in a pod. So it's really cool to see that Abraham generated respect from our boy Fett. And I really liked how that came together.
Yeah, it was really good. So we go back inside the Quickie Mart, and everybody's kind of like, so what's going on out there? And F's like, well, there's a plague that's going throughout New York. And somebody stops him and says, are you sure it's a plague? Because that dude said vampires, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, and we have to come to grips as a society in New York in this very moment. And NF has these issues too. These are vampires, whether or not they're vampires that are passing the virus like a plague or not. They absolutely are vampires. They're not sucking blood with fangs like you would normally see, and Fett kind of rejects it for that reason. But they've got these 6-foot long tongues that drain people dry. So these are just vampires of a different color. But there are rules, like there are with other vampires. They can't get exposed to sunlight. Silver hurts them, and on and on. So these are vampires, whether we like it or not.
They're vampires, whether we like it or not. I think we don't like it very much if we are living in the world of the strain. If we are watching the strain, we like it very much.
Yes, we like a vampire.
We like vampire. Um,
Yes.
and so the hacker's friend decides she doesn't like vampire, so she runs, she cheeses it, and she's fine. She's good. No one's coming after her.
She goes with the run away from a crocodile strategy and just kind of zigs through them, and they can't, for some reason, they shamble along and really don't take her that seriously, and she's gone. But the some reason, unfortunately, is that they're not there for her, are they?
Runaway stray, never come back.
Wrong way on a one-way track. Yeah, no. There's a grave dancers union there that is formed on Labor Day that will really try to keep these people away.
So yeah, so she books it, and yeah, it's because they're not here for her. They're here for us, and that's a terrifying realization for everybody inside that Quickie Mart.
Yeah, but Abe has just gone on this kind of like he goes on this rant, right, where he says, "This is what they thrive on: fear, panic, divisiveness. Their strength in numbers. We must make a plan and beat them together."
Yeah.
He's a good leader. This Abe. He's like a Vince Lombardi type.
And then the truck driver's like, yeah, I've got a plan. I am going to cheese it as well, and I am going to get to my truck. And Dutch, the hacker's like, yeah, bro, I'm with you. We're going to do that. And so they both run outside. At first, it seems like the trucker might be okay. He's dodged a few of them, and I'm kind of thinking, are they really not even just going to, like, swipe at him while he's... I know that they're focused on Abraham and F and Jeff. Like, they want to come after these guys, but... are they going to completely ignore this meal that's right in front of them? And of course they don't. They just tear him to pieces. They just start blood sucking him, and you're pretty sure that he is going to be out of the picture for the rest of the episode. He'll come back right at the end. But our guys, they have to go. They have to save the hacker, and they have to bring her in. And yeah, this was a bad plan. You just got that guy killed.
Yeah, bread is a delicious meal for any meal. Bread is always delicious, and so a bread-based driver has probably had some good bread in his body. So this is somebody that these guys want to feed on. And look, they let one lady go. You're not going to all get off scot-free like that, especially not with a big van that could drive everyone else out of there. So no bread truck.
No, it's not. It's not a good plan. They come back inside, and Abraham is basically like, "Listen, we can't even wait here until the morning. We're not going to make it till the morning. We're not lasting through the night." And F is starting to realize that some of these creatures seem to have a bit of a consciousness. And this is when Abraham says, "Well, they're connected to the Master, and he can see and speak through all of them." And F, he doesn't really buy it.
No, because he's this man of science. He doesn't like to just buy into what this dude is saying every time he says something. But unfortunately for F, he needs to just buy it. He needs to accept that things are not exactly the way he would want them to be, and that he can't control everything as a scientist. He needs to just buy in. It's interesting because we see Vasily Fett, who has scientific knowledge, who has some interest in these things. He immediately says, what are the rules? Okay, silver this, cut the brainstem off. He buys into the rules right away. F is rejecting them at every turn, and Abraham's getting kind of red hot about this. He's like, when are you going to listen to me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, F is his value is diminishing now that Vasily is in the mix, I think.
I agree. He's not the alpha dog anymore. The tribes have merged. He's really not going to add any value. So he's better get on board or he's out. Even Nora's negotiating things. F doesn't really seem to be doing anything that isn't serving F's agenda right now.
Do you know what else is diminishing, Antonio?
Tell me.
The believability of Dr. Ephraim Goodweather's wig. Wig watch, high alert in this scene. He's got hairs all over the place. It looks terrible. It looks really bad.
There's just no good. And
Put the beanie back on immediately.
There was one point, I don't remember if it was this episode or a previous episode, where somebody's like, we got to get out of your hair, you know, and I'm thinking the hair's got to get out of us. Like, he really is just infecting every one of us, like those worms that crawl into bodies, and every one of those little stray hairs that pop aside. Nobody could simulate that. You couldn't make something like that in a lab, but yet it's on his head somehow. It's outrageous. It's got to go.
It's got to go. It's really bad. But what is not diminishing, what seems to be increasing, is Vasily Fett's interest in working the lottery right
The
now.
lotto.
He wants some Powerball quick fix.
He wants some. He wants a winner. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where he calls Hassan Apu, which is a nice little Simpsons reference. I like that. I thought that was good, even though it was pretty racist and not great. That was probably my least favorite thing about Vasily Fett, is the revelation that he's, kind of casually racist.
Now, and this is not present company certainly excluded. He's a hardcore New Yorker, man. Like
Yeah.
that, it's not to be totally expected that he's going to be welcoming of every 7-Eleven owner or anything like that. And he's got a little bit of a poo in him, but it's good to know he's a Simpsons fan.
He's a Simpsons fan. That's good. That might come in handy. If he's seen enough Treehouse of Horrors, maybe he can come up with a way to get through the strain.
Yeah, he maybe that's why he bought into the rules right away. He just a new episode. We're going to go with this for now.
And he says his luck can only get better, which is ironic because poor Jim Kent's luck will only get worse.
And this is right away we see he does have, unfortunately, a worm in his face.
He has a worm in his face, and we're going to have to perform emergency surgery in the Quickie Mart.
Yeah.
Is what happens here. They're going to have to cut it out of him.
The best part of this is F launches this plan. He's like, I need toilet paper, and I need tweezers, and I need a knife, and I need that peroxide, and blah 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 blah. And Abe says, "Doctor, can I get a word, please?" Like he wants to. You can tell he's ready to kill Jim immediately.
He's like, that guy needs to die.
Yeah, doctor, can I get a word, please?
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, like, what is he gonna say? Is he just gonna say we just got to shoot him in the head now and just pretend like he's immediately off the table, or is he gonna be like we should probably we should douse him with lighter fluid and set him on fire and send him out there as a distraction against the Strigoi while we run away?
Whatever it is, it's not what F wants, and this is the interesting dichotomy, of course, between these groups. Essentially, two leaders. You've got this guy who wants to try to save people and be scientific and be a hero, and this guy who isn't necessarily interested in being a hero. He just wants to kill these guys and do what has to be done. It's almost a calling or a task for him. And for F had to kind of come on board. So everything like this is going to be a big butt heads between the two of these guys. But this is one of F's kind of come to the master moments where he has to really accept that this is what he's going to have to do in order to make progress here. You can't save everybody, and this is, even though he's your buddy, this is not going to end well.
Well, the good news is it seems like it ends well. They cut his face open, they fished the worm out, they think that they got it out in time before it reproduced, and so they're very excited because it seems like maybe they've found a treatment for this thing. Maybe they aren't going to be able to cure this disease, but maybe we have found a way to slow it down or to stop it if we get there fast enough. Like in Walking Dead terms, it's if Jim had gotten bit on the ankle and they chopped his leg off below the knee within 2 minutes of it happening, maybe he's not going to turn into a zombie. So maybe they're thinking, we got the worm out in time. It seems like enough time has passed. This might be a good way to stop the whole vampire thing from spreading.
Yeah, and they don't really know how these worms reproduce, so at least in theory, it's a decent theory that if they pull the one out before whatever it needs to reproduce happens, then maybe they've made some sort of save. But it didn't really play out that way, unfortunately.
It didn't really play out that way. But for now, everybody seems happy. Even Mr. Kent, who says, "Well, you cut my face open," which I thought was
you cut my face open. You saved my life. Yeah, he seems to be very thankful. He candidly, he probably deserved far less than what he got. He probably deserved to just let him go, but they went ahead and saved him. I don't know exactly why, and they gave him a little bit of love that he probably didn't deserve, and they'll get their just desserts for that one.
Well, they're friends again. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, for now.
For now. So they're talking about that. That gets resolved, and now they need to figure out what to do because these vampires are starting to try to cut the power. And Abraham, he shoots a vampire that's attacking the power pole. It's too late for them to save the power situation because the power does get shut down from this vampire. So it's getting bleak. It's getting dark, literally.
Yeah, and at first I was a little bit rattled because the lights were still on, the UV lights, and then I realized they had charged them. But I guess that the fear would be how much of a charge did they really get out of those lights, and how much could they save, and that definitely comes into play. So they're not at all safe. The lights are out. The doors aren't going to hold. We heard Fett already point out they're looking for points of ingress and egress and looking for weak spots. within the building. Our people just are not safe, so they're going to have to figure this out pretty quickly.
Yeah, and they start to like get on the roof, and they're trying to rip out the HVAC system. They're trying to get into the ventilation. It's like super aliens out there right now, so it's getting really bad. So they need to start coming up with a plan. And Abraham says, "Let's put it to a vote. Who wants to stay and die?" And nobody wants to do that.
Push
Yeah.
poll.
Yeah, nobody wants to stay and die. So he says, the longer we allow ourselves to remain distracted from our only goal, survival, the more likely we are to fall short of achieving it.
He's so great. Vince Lombardi, I'm telling you, he's like an old football coach.
He's great.
Yeah, this is a guy, and I think we're going to learn more about him as we progress through the series, but it'll be very interesting to know what this guy has experienced in life. The question of whose heart is in the jar has come into play already. We don't know exactly what's going on there. We had Jason Burning on Twitter thinking that it might be his mother's, and that we'll probably get some more World War II flashbacks there. I don't know if it's her, if it's a lover that he had.
It's his bubby.
It's his bubby. We don't know exactly what's going to play out, but he's had some life. He's lived some life. We know he's thrown some bodies in the North Sea. He's done some damage to these people. He's had some run-ins over the years, and so he's kind of always been preparing for this moment. So it isn't surprising that of all the people, he's the one least taken aback and the one most ready to lead, and all these guys have to do is just get behind him and he'll take care of business.
Yeah, and so he gives us some more information here too. Once the vampires start trying to get in through the roof, basically we get it from F, who says, what's going on here? Why do some of these seem to be acting, with actual rational thought? And we find out that, pretty soon these things are going to be mature. They're going to mature in a month. And F asks, are they going to be like Eichhorst? And this is where we learn, no, Eichhorst is special.
Right. We learn that Eichhorst is special. We learn that the more they mature, then they go from shambling kind of zombie-like vampires to fully ambulant, fully thoughtful, dangerous kind of creatures and beasts. And it makes me worry about people like Gabriel Bolivar, who we haven't seen yet.
Right.
Is he going to be more like the Eichhorst special type? Is he going to progress to a person who can kind of slide in and out of society and maintain his existing image and use that somehow to his advantage? Or is he going to be more like, we saw what Joan was like last week. She was shambling, shuffling, not really cogent, kind of just sort of animalistic creature. So it'll be interesting to see which of the ones that we've seen created so far, if time really does progress, who become the really dangerous ones and who become the ones that are every bit as dangerous but yet not intelligent, that you can somehow outwit or outplay.
We really got to get in on some more Gabriel Bolivar. We got to get that guy back in the mix.
Yeah, he's been missing for too long. It's good to think about the fact that when we do see him again, it will be acceptable that he will have morphed somewhat. Whether or not he looks slightly different in the face, we already saw him go smooth. I don't know what his morph will be, but enough time has passed that I could buy in if the next time we see him he looks different and acts different.
Yeah, I think that's interesting though. Now that we know with certainty that the way that this works is if you want to be, if you want a vampire that's like Eichhorst, you're the master and you're making them that way. And with Gabriel being the only one of those 4 initial survivors of the flight, still I guess quote unquote alive, I feel like either it's going to just be all 4 of those people were really just nothing more than distractions and we're just going to, get rid of them here, or they're going to be using Gabriel for a higher purpose. So it'll be interesting to see which way it goes.
Yeah, they didn't get a lot of mileage out of the 4 yet. And so the question is, if they were to be distractions, did they really get a ton of mileage out of them being distractions? No, I don't think so. Ansel is dead, we know, because he was near the top of the list.
Ansel is so dead right now.
So dead right now. He's so dead right now. No, so we know he's dead, and we know why. We know what happened to Joan, and we know what happened to the captain. So Gabriel is kind of the Hail Mary that did make it through, and the question is not only what will happen to him, but what about the other people that he is turning?
Yeah.
Are they going to be different because he's the one that's infected them or not? And so we have to wonder about all of those things. I don't know that we've seen, for example, we saw Chief last week. Chief had met some sort of untimely demise via his wife. But I don't think, and I could be wrong, correct me if I am, did we see him get dealt with? Did we see his brainstem get separated?
No, because we saw the vampire hunters, cold-bladed hands, took care of the nanny's daughter, and that was basically the way that the episode ends, at least in terms of that storyline. So we didn't get to see what they did with Chief. You got to imagine that they took care of Chief.
Yeah, and I'd like to see it so that I know it for sure, because there are some of these loose ends where you wonder, well, if that guy, and every time somebody gets shot in the head by any of our characters here, I'm wondering, okay, if they're using silver bullets, then shooting them in the head probably is fine. If they're not, then shooting them in the head probably isn't fine unless somehow they do enough damage. So there are questions about everybody that we've seen alive and dead on the show. Unless we see them really get dealt with, I think I think we can confirm the captain is done because of the brainstem issue. But unless we see them really get dealt with, I don't know.
I feel like Joan Luss is done.
Joan is done, and that's done by a different weapon there. There's some kind of dart there that they hit her with, and I'm not sure if that's silver or what the idea there is, but they seem to really know what they're doing. That seems to be their sole purpose in Afterlife. So
yeah, they would have to be, worse at their jobs than the taxi drivers of New York City in the show. And I feel like these guys are probably better at their jobs than the taxi drivers.
I sense that they're really, really good at their jobs. Yeah. So
they look good.
They look good. They're all kitted out. They have weird personalities that are associated with them. So I think Joan is gone. But it will be very interesting to see now that we know that there is some difference to these people, to the Strigoi, and like we see how they progress. And Eichhorst is a special one. How many other special ones are there, and what's that going to look like, and how's that going to resound in the characters that we've already met?
Right, yeah. So it'll be interesting. Also interesting, there are so many worms that are still in Jim.
No good for Jim.
He has
so bad for Jim.
He has all of the worms.
He just goes to plaid, like immediately. He goes from nothing, 0 to a million worms, basically in the span of 10 minutes.
6 to midnight.
6 to midnight. He just went from 6 to midnight. Yes, he just went straight down to straight up. No good, and he's going to have to tuck himself inside his sweatpants band, or he's in real trouble. He's in real trouble because those worms are going to make their way everywhere throughout his body, and this is where push is really going to come to shove. We can try to get him to a hospital and do all this chemo. There's a lot of talk that comes up right away.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about, we've got a lot of tools at our disposal. We can do this, and he is immediately just like, you know what? Just kill me. You have to release me. That's the expression, right? I don't want to turn. I don't want to go after my mom or my dad or my wife.
My wife.
My wife. So no, he is on board with just getting taken care of right now. He knows it's too late. And there's arguments between Abraham and F. Abraham basically saying, we can't save him, the humane thing to do. And F is all, no, this is my friend, the humane thing's to treat him. But it's all going to get resolved because Vasily Fett is just going to step up and do the deed. He's just going to pop Jim in the chest. You get a little bit of a yelp from Jim. He's like, ah! And then he just gets shot in the head, and he's dead. And that's it. And they shot the mole, and he's gone.
They shot the mole. They shoot moles, don't they?
They shoot moles, don't they? So he's gone. That's it. That's how Jim Kent dies. And I don't know. I mean, it was a great moment for Vasily Fett to just like come out of nowhere and just pop him. I thought that was pretty amusing the way they did that. But I definitely thought that there was going to be something more brutal coming this guy's way. I thought that he was going to get torn to pieces by vampires. I at least thought that they were going to use him as some kind of distraction to get themselves out of the Quickie Mart. But no, they just plug him. It's done.
Yeah, and this is interesting because the end of the last episode, as we just talked about, the Haitian woman's daughter gets killed for very much the same reason. She gets nicked. She just gets a little bit of a scrape from a tussle with one of the Strigoi, and she ends up in a position where she's probably going to turn. And our Cold Blade Hands team has no real patience for that, and they have to take care of her. And they really just do it without incident, without emotion. It has to be done, and that's fine. We saw that. We see the very same situation facing off here with Jim, except we know Jim is far, far worse. We've seen him under the UV light. We know there's really no saving him and no hope for him. And
yeah, he was effed, and not in the good weather sense.
Right, he was effed in the A, and it was no good. And so I think it was very interesting, and we'll see a different moment for F, I think, later in the episode. But in this moment, F didn't want to be humane. F didn't want to just put him out of his misery. F wanted to essentially hit a dog or a deer with his car, and then just really try to think that there were got to be some ways to save it, got to be something I can do. The humane thing is to end it. The humane thing is to end the suffering. It's not only safer for everyone, it's better for Jim, and that's what Jim wanted. So kudos to Fett for stepping up, and F's really going to have to get his game together. He is not happy with Fett after this goes down.
No, this is a bad start to their friendship.
Right. Well, think about it. A really bad thing to do is if you just meet someone for the first time, kill one of their friends.
Probably not the move you want to make if you want to become buddies with this person.
No. Well, sometimes you gotta prove your way in. So if this were a gang initiation or something like that, then maybe. But this is really, really bad news.
It's bad. It's very bad news. Any final thoughts as we lose Mr. Jim Kent?
You want a paean? You want like some sort of funeral ballad for Jim? I don't.
Give any eulogy for Jim?
Should I Googleize him in such a way that he doesn't deserve something better? It was interesting. Sean Astin is kind of a name, right? He's a guy that has played some big roles in his career, and I'm not saying he's bottoming out and this is somehow above him, but this is a face we recognize. So I am a little surprised we lost him this early, and in such a way, like you said, that he didn't go out like a hero. He just went out to prove that Fett was able to do something that F couldn't. So that's really the only thing gained by his death. I don't know, man. I wish he could have discovered some sort of Encino Man, perhaps, and uncovered him. I wish we'd gotten some more out of him. I wish we'd had a moment where everyone put their weapons down and were cheering for him, and we could maybe put him into the game. I don't know. I just wish he'd gotten a little more out of him here.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm happy that he's gone because now I don't have to worry about calling him Jeff Kent. Which is, I think I already called him Jeff at one point on this podcast. And every time I think Jim Kent, I always want to say Jeff Kent. He really has it out for those returning vampires. They're really on his radar.
Yes, and Obama. He really didn't like Obama blocking the cancer medicine. So
yeah, not a fan.
Not a fan at all. So I can see the Jeff Kent connections. I can see why you were so confused. And our team's Barry Bonds here. The new big alpha male comes in, and of course he's going to have beef with Jim right away. So it's not surprising that you would be effing that up, or jeffing that up, I should say.
Yes, I jeffed it up.
You jeffed it up a little bit, but I'm gonna miss him because I just feel like we could have done more with that character. We saw in the intro to this episode, in the previously ons, Icor saying, you have two bosses now. You work for me and you work for the CDC. He was the mole. He was the guy. We just didn't get much out of that. But this is a show that, going forward, I don't think we're going to have a lot of time to concern ourselves with the wherefores and the hows of the plans. It's going to be a lot of vampire killing from here on out.
A lot of vampire killing. As we covered, F is very upset with Vasily. Even Nora is very upset with Vasily. He says this wasn't your decision to make. He's saying I did your friend a favor. He's pretty cold about it. You guys were arguing when we needed to be moving. So he's all about survival. Anything we can do to stay alive, let's just do it. This guy was dead already. And so they make a break for it, basically. They're like, okay, we're going to get to the truck, and we are going to use gasoline to create some Molotov cocktails, and it's going to be a pretty cool final scene on this episode of The Strain.
Yeah, and can you help me follow through something here?
Sure.
Why did the card work at the gas pump?
Yeah, that is a good question, because Dutch is trying to warn them that it's not going to work, right?
Right.
And yet it does.
And that is interesting to me. I don't know if there's something to be more thought of there or not. We had Jason Burning who tweeted us that he had a theory that there was more than one master, and that's where the Blade Squad came from last episode, and that maybe there's some sort of good versus evil thing going on here that even maybe Abraham isn't privy to. And if that's the case, then I'm not sure if really what we've got here is we've got somebody trying to undo what the Stoneheart group is doing and the Master's doing. That is something that we just haven't seen uncovered yet. And so I don't know if this was a flub in terms of continuity, or if this was something that was really meant to key on something else. But I thought that was interesting.
So you think that there might be a good Master out there?
I think, well, I don't know. That, like I said, that's a theory that Jason Burning and others on Twitter have sent to us in the last couple of weeks. That maybe there is something greater at play. Once we introduced the Cold Blade Hands team last episode, then I think the door's open for that. The door's open for somebody working for the forces of good that are somehow also undead. And if that's the case, then somebody else with powers may be well out there trying to fight against the Master's incursion here. And it's not just this Abraham and his intrepid group of, ne'er-do-wells and scamps. This is somebody maybe who's organized such that they're all kitted out. They've got weapons. They've got, they're specifically at Joan's house for a reason because she was one of the 4 survivors. I don't know if that's what's happening, and I don't know if the credit card machine somehow working in that moment was a key or if that was just a lucky break for them. So I really don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
It'll be interesting to see. That's definitely something to keep an eye on, I think. Other than that, I think the only other really big news from this final scene is F does what he couldn't do for Jim, not Jeff Kent, and he shoots the driver who had not been killed by the vampires, but he was certainly going to turn. He was definitely on his way. So F just takes care of him while he's got the shot.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that in the context of this episode alone, we see a mini arc there for F, somebody who is going to try to fight to save people and doesn't want people to go and doesn't want to put people out of their misery and free them, essentially unburden them from where they're headed. And here we go. He takes the moment to take the bread truck driver out, and that's a key moment for F. He's Abe and Fett are rubbing off on him, and I think this can only mean good things for F going forward and our group, as if they're getting on the same page.
I certainly hope so. I like that this is the group. Listen, if we are losing Jim Kent and we're gaining Vasily Fett and the computer hacker, I think this is a very good trade for us.
Yeah, and let me ask you a question.
Shoot.
Where was Nora's mom?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Is she just tied up in Abraham's basement? Because they can't just trust her to stay there.
No. Why did they leave her, and with whom? This is not good.
Yeah, I feel like that is not great. I feel like they might come to regret that.
Midway through the episode, I was like, wait a minute, we're missing someone here.
Yeah, having her alone in Abraham's basement is probably a bad call for a lot of reasons, because she's not her best self. She might escape. We know that she tried escaping from her home a few times, from her assisted living home, so that's something that she is capable of at least attempting, if not accomplishing. And also the fact that Abraham's pawn shop, if Nora could just find it in a phone book, how easy is it going to be for Eichhorst to find? And if he can find Abraham, then he can find Nora's mom if she's still in the basement. So, yeah, I don't see anything good coming of this.
Yeah, we've speculated on this podcast. There are a lot of family members of these people floating around out there. We have F's wife and his son, Zach, and the boyfriend there. We have
the boyfriend who is obviously a vampire at this point.
He's obviously a vampire, and he's probably going to go full vamp. And come home and unfortunately threaten those two. So I don't know how much time we're going to have to spend dealing with the family member vampires, but that is clearly something the show has established, and we even talked about it again on this episode, that they prey on the ones you love, and it's one of the most difficult things about the turning is that you immediately have to take care of somebody that you love and you care about. So I think that Nora's mom's being set up for that. I think that F's family's being set up for that. We're going to see, I'm sure, some of that in the weeks to come.
Yeah, I think so. Do we have anything else from people who are listening and watching along, Antonio?
No, I think that was really it. I think that main theory that Jason had tweeted about is something that we had really kind of seen, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because there's another force in play. We know that. We just don't know what the source of that other force is and how great its power may be. And so whether or not that was tied into things working out for our troops tonight or not, I'm not 100% sure on that, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
So where do you think we go next, now that we have sort of this motley crew of vampire slayers together? What's the next move for these guys?
Well, I think you pointed out it seems stupid to go to Abraham's pawn shop, and yet I think that's where they're going to probably go and reassess what they're doing. They've got a bread truck now.
The Abe Cave.
The Abe Cave. The old Abe Cave. They're going to go down to that basement. There's worms in there already in that heart. So if she starts playing around with that heart, she could well be turned by the time they get back. This is really not good business for them. And But he's got we know a sort of Baker Street irregular type group with that young girl at the pawn shop. We know Gus has some connection to the pawn shop, so it's not a bad HQ for them. But like you said, it's on the grid and it's discoverable. So this is not something I think that they're ultimately safe at, and they're going to have to reassess. Daylight will come, and when daylight comes, unless the Stoneheart group has built a block to keep the sun out, a la Mr. Burns in The Simpsons, I think that we're going to have a little bit of time to reassess in the daylight what's happening to the city. And I don't know if we're going to get back to F's boss or not, but I think there's some interesting stuff that could happen there with Everett. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. I want some Gabe Bolivar. Like you, I need to see where that is right now.
I want to see where he is, and I want to get Gus in the mix. I want Gus on the squad.
I want Gus on the squad too. And Gus, we know we're not going to get Felix, unfortunately.
Poor Felix, no.
Gus is going to have to take care of business there. But Gus has come into interaction with the guy with the silver teeth. And those silver teeth being silver are interesting to me. So I don't know if that guy comes back into play. I don't know if Gus's brother comes into play at all. It seems like Gus's brother is prime candidate to turn and threaten Gus's mother. So I don't really know how that's all going to play out. But we got to figure out how to get Gus hooked up with our group here.
I feel like you don't want to bite a vampire, even if you have silver teeth. Probably not the best play.
No, well, you don't want those worms anywhere near you. We already, Abraham ominously said it episodes ago, and we've seen it come into play. Just one or two worms can really mean the whole difference here. So I don't think you want to get that close at all, period.
No, that's probably at the very bottom of the power rankings of weapons you could use against one of these vampires.
Mouth.
It's probably, you don't want to use your mouth.
Yeah, that's just no good.
There's almost nothing worse.
No.
Yeah, so that would be pretty bad. Well, I think that's going to do it for us here on The Strain Live here on Post Show Recaps. If you like what we're doing, you should subscribe. You can subscribe to our iTunes feed at postshowrecaps.com/strain iTunes. If you like what we're doing on Post Show Recaps in general, you can just subscribe to the general feed. That's postshowrecaps.com/iTunes. Or on YouTube, that's postshowrecaps.com/YouTube. You can follow Antonio online on Twitter. He's at AC Mazzaro, 2 Z's, 1 R. I'm at Round Howard, like Ron Howard, but rounder. We'll be back next week talking about the next episode of The Strain. Antonio, any final words on this glorious vampire-killing Labor Day?
No, if we don't stay together, we're going to die. So I think we got to stay together on this one.
Live together, die alone?
Live together, die alone.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Take care.